welcome, Denise. Thank you so much for coming along today and agreeing to talk about Black History Month and anything else that comes along as we have a chat. It's lovely to see you, and I think we'll just go dive straight in, if that's okay with you, and talk about how Black History Month has been for you this year.
So this year's been an interesting year because I think following the sort of rise of the civil rights movement for Black communities and ethnic minorities has kind of lifted up the awareness of Black history. So I think there's been a lot more in the media. There's been organisations kind of putting more of a focus on Black history and really thinking about that.
How do you think reflecting on our history enables us to move forward?
One of the things that I've heard a lot of the stories that I've heard is around what is different now about this civil rights movement to how it was maybe in history and back in the 60s, what's being done very differently now. And I think you need to look back at those times to actually learn what you can do differently going forward. So it's really important to see what's been tried before, how it's been tried, and to look at the things that have worked and look at the things that haven't worked as well, and try and move forward in a new and different way. And I think what's been really interesting now, because the biggest difference between now and in the 60s is we've got social media. Black men have always been killed, especially in the Americas by the police. That has been happening, from the beginning of when the slaves were taken there to now. And what is different now is people can actually capture that on camera, and then it can be shown to the world. And I think when you see something like that, your level of empathy kicks in, doesn't it? So I think, it's very different now because I think we live in a world that's much, much more exposing, but it allows people to really think about what's happening. So, moving forward, I think it's easier to access the information around history and also think about how can we decolonize our thinking moving forward. And I think including stories in that's also really important because you're going to have multiple perspectives on how to move forward. I think you can open up conversations around sameness and difference in each other. And quite often when people tell each other stories, and have those conversations, then they'll find actually that they might have more similarities, even though, it might be that race sets you apart as well. So I think sharing stories is just a timeless way of communicating, isn't it? It's always been, and I think we understand stories as humans.
Yeah. Is there any particular story of your own that you've been sharing through Black History Month?
Yeah. So I've got quite a recent story that I talk about that I've really that's really landed with me in the last year, and that's around teaching real history, especially to young people, to talk about colonialism in a very real way, because I think the way that it's been portrayed for probably 100 years is there's a narrative of conquering. There's something around, that colonialism was some type of achievement, and actually that wasn't the whole of story. So it's being able to safely talk about colonialism in a different way.
How are you feeling about change going forward? How do you feel positive, or how are you feeling?
I feel positive in some areas. I feel really positive about young people doing this work. I think on that march that happened in Bristol, the Black Lives Matter march, of the demographic, the young people that were out, it was just amazing. And actually their awareness around these issues means that actually, as they become, they sort of become adults and are able to vote, that they may make very different decisions to my generation, because I'm an old person now. But that's been really positive. And I think if there was a bit more of a push in schools around decolonising what is taught in history and what is taught, when young people are thinking about what's happening in society. I think that can really raise the awareness of how to manage difference.
How are you feeling about the second step and the addressing racism work that we're doing in light of the last few weeks' conversation, really? How are you feeling about that?
I feel really positive about it. I mean, I've been at Second Step now for 7 years, and this is the first time that I've seen this much energy go into this piece of work. And it's not an easy piece of work, Jane. Actually, it's like you're saying, it's really complex in places, and it can be really uncomfortable. But what's been really lovely is people have been able to, sit in this discomfort in a very supported way. And I think that, the exercises around listening really help to do that. There's a project called the Halo Code. It's a project basically that a company or an organisation can sign up to say they won't discriminate against black hair. So if somebody comes in with afro hair or dreadlocks, that company's saying we don't discriminate, against black hair at all. So so little things like that popping up have been really useful. They've just been really lovely, and that that makes you feel sometimes that things are actually moving. And I think because of the type of work we do, so the work we do with our black clients and clients from ethnic minorities, that if they see that on our websites too, that it just makes everything feel a bit more accessible.
And so looking forward then, do you think you'll see a different second step in, I don't know, a year's time, or how do you feel about that?
I mean, I hope so. I do hope so. I do think there's some hope there. I can't quite yet see what that will be, because I think that much more work needs to be done, and it's going to be an ongoing process. Where you can't really take your foot off the gas for a little while. But I feel hopeful that something will feel different, especially for staff and for clients.